Hello, this is Katie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to look at showing you how to make this cute little pendant. The majority of it is all made from wire. We've just got one either seed bead or I'm going to add a gemstone in the one that I make in a moment. So this is just a size 6 seed bead. It's a nice size pendant. It's quite delicate, it's light, and it looks good back and front if it was to flip over as well. And it's quite a simple make. So let's just have a look at what we need to get started. So we're going to be using some bare copper wire. You can use any kind of craft wire or copper wire you want to. The sizes I'm using is a 0.9mm. You can use 0.8 or 1mm if that's what you have. And I'm using a 0.4mm to wrap with. You could use anything 0.4 or lower in gauge to wrap with. I wouldn't wrap with anything higher than 0.4. The tools that I'm going to use are all just your basic toolkit, so we'll be using some flush cutters, different sizes of kind of your pliers, your chain nose or your flat nose pliers. These are my kind of go-to, the kind of narrow flat nose and the kind of pointy flat nose pliers, and some round nose pliers. We may be using those as well. So we are going to get straight on, and I'll just get everything out of the way and ready and we'll make a start. So I've pre-cut my wires, so these are my 0.9mm gauge wires, and I've got 20 centimetres of each of these, so that's 3 lengths of 20 centimetres. Now the initial part that we're going to make is kind of this loop, this kind of teardrop shape, and it's this wrap that we're going to be making around here first, and it is going really back to basics with your 2 and 2 wrap. So 2 wraps on 2 wires and then 2 wraps on 2 wires, 2 wraps on 2 wires. So it's kind of going like this, but they're also going to be bunched together as well. So we're going to start off with our piece of weaving wire. Now I would suggest if you're working with a reel, just work from the reel, so then you don't have to worry about running out. But if you're not working from a reel, I would suggest taking at least about 2 meters, and then you know that you're not going to run out and you'll be able to continue doing the other wrapping with the same piece of wire too. So we're just going to pick up one of our wires. This is a really basic weave. I will only cover it very, very quickly. There is a tutorial on it which is available in my on my YouTube channel, which I'll pop a link above. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this middle section here, a little bit like if we were going to be making a ring or something like that. And we're going to wrap about 8 centimetres, 8 or 9 centimetres in this centre section. So we're going to start off on the bottom wire. Couple of wraps to start with, as we always do. Nice tight wraps pushed together and making sure that they are nice and anchored to our wire. Then we're going to pop our next wire on top, so it's going on top of that tail, that little tail that we leave, and leveling up so that we know that we're in the right spot. So we're wrapping in that middle section, and 2 wraps over 2 wires, so 2, 1, 2, and then up in between the 2 we just wrapped and push together. So now we have 2 wraps over 2 wires. Just let that focus a second. There we go. 2 wraps over 2 wires and up in between the 2 we just wrapped. And then we're going to pop our next wire on, which is our last wire, and we're going to go 2 wraps over those 2, so these top 2. So 2 wraps over those, push them nice and tight together, and then up in between the ones we just wrapped, and wrapping the bottom 2. And we're just going to continue doing that, wrapping the top 2, wrapping the bottom 2, until we've got to the about 8 or 9 centimetre mark. So always remembering to come up through the ones we just wrapped. Now there are different ways to do this wrapping, in which sometimes you could come all the way down to the bottom and then wrap over, but if you do that, you need to do that the whole way along. You can't kind of swap and change halfway through, because what you've got to remember is if your pendant turns over, you will see a difference in the wrapping. So whichever way you decide to do it, just make sure you continue to do it the same way all the way along. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to one that I've pre-made. So here we go. This is pre-made. We don't need this tail wire to begin with, that we began with. So I'm just going to snip that one off there nice and close and make sure that's nipped in. We're going to leave our weaving wire attached because we want to be able to use that. Okay, so let's just see, there we go. So I'm weaving wires on this side. So what I'm going to start to do is just manipulate this just with the warmth of my hands. We want to keep it flat, but we just want to start bringing it up and in together a little bit, little by little bit, just starting to form that shape until we get a really nice kind of shape together. You can start bringing these in. Like so. So spend a little bit more time than I'm doing here so you get a really nice shape. Mine's a little bit off, but we'll work with it. Like so. So I'm going to decide to take those two over there. So as long as you've got sort of a good length on each side, it doesn't really matter. I don't know why I decided, because they're both about the same, but that's the way I roll with it. Okay, so initially what we want to do is these two wires at the bottom, so the wires that are coming over the front and the two at the bottom, just separate them out just very slightly, only very slightly, like so. The next thing we want to do is taking our chain nose pliers, this wire at the top needs to come straight up. Okay, so now we're going to cross these over a little bit, like so, and this wire, so just holding that where they cross, this wire is going to come over and to the back, like so. So it's just come over. I've just used my fingers just to push it over. That's a really bad shaped teardrop. Let's try and sort that out a little bit. That's a bit better, but you can see what I'm getting at. Okay, so this one here is going to form our bail. Okay, and then these two at the back are just kind of loop over and become a little kind of like a prong around the back. So we want those to come around the back, so pull them over to the other side a little bit, and then we want to snip these really short, but so that we can just kind of nip them in around the back. So I'm just going to use my pliers just to kind of bend those ends just a little bit. If you want to use round nose pliers, you can, and then I'm going to use my pliers to just kind of nip them around like so. If I just bring that up there, I'm going to just bring that and nip those in. Okay, so now we've got this nice shape. Well, yours will be not nicer than mine because I rushed mine a little bit. So I will continue to fiddle with that. So this is going to be our bail here, this wire that's coming straight out of the top, and these wires are going to form some detail. So with the wires that we've got here at the top, these ones that are coming from the back, the one at the very top, separate them out, just pull that out of the way for a minute. These two are going to form that design that comes over the top, so don't worry about them for a minute. In fact, you can just pull them forwards. This one, we kind of just want to get rid of this one here. So all I'm going to do is bring that around and just do a kind of a single wrap onto this wire with this spared wire that we've got. So I'm just going to hold it nice and tight and firm and pull it in quite nice and tight, giving that a little bit of an extra squish. There we go, we've just got a really good wrap around there. It's going to get wrapped around again, so don't worry too much about it, but just nice and as neat and as tight as possible. Let's just manipulate this a little bit better. Really not happy with that shape, but we'll go with it because this one turned out a really nice shape here. Yeah. So now if I just bring this up, you can see what we've got. So we've got these two wires at the back coming out over, they're going to come over the front. These two wires came around and we just nipped them in underneath at the back there. And the spare wire that we had from this side is just wrapped around the bottom there. So we're just going to, we're going to ignore the bail part at the minute, and we're going to work on this front part here. Now we're going to continue to use the weaving wire that we had originally, so yours is probably already still connected to your reel, which is great. If not, just make sure you've got at least sort of 80 centimetres a metre still left, so you've got plenty to use. And what we want to do is bring these kind of over the front so we can see which direction they're going to go in. So these ones are going to come over and to this side, and we want them kind of more nipped in at the top, so closer at the top and coming out a little bit wider so we can fit our bead in at the bottom there. So we're going to start wrapping this in a figure of 8 weave. So we're going to bring this over and wrap this single top wire twice, and then it's going to come under this side. So we're going to go over, under, and what you need to do, don't be tempted to kind of splay these out and start wrapping, because we need to look at where it's going and the width that we're getting and where we need to stop as well, because we need to stop wrapping around here so that we can fit our bead in that section there. So we need to keep an eye on it, and it does build up quite quickly. So we do 2 wraps on this side. So this is a basic figure of 8 weave. You might find it a little bit tricky just at the start where it's kind of narrow and up against another weave. So your figure of 8, it kind of comes, if you imagine sort of the 2 ends of the wire, and your wire is going like this around it, but every time you're going twice around each side, like so. So how many times have I done? None. So you're just going to let this build up in your figure of 8 weave, 2 wraps around each side each time. So I'm just going to skip forwards a little bit, and I will join you back here in a few seconds. So now I'm ready to add my bead in. So now to add my bead in, I don't want to add it too close to my wrapping, because you've got to think the drill hole for the bead is actually a little few millimetres along. So instead of just doing 2 wraps at each side, just on this one I'm going to do about 4 wraps and then add my bead. So this is actually, I think it's about a 5mm bead, so I hope it fits okay. So this is like a 5mm amber, and if I need to I can just splay these out just a tiny bit. I just pop my amber in there, so I put it on so that my wire's coming over the top, so the side that's coming over the top, and then wrap that 4 wraps just to match on this side as well, otherwise you won't get your bead to fit very nicely. So we've got 4 wraps on this side, 4 wraps on this side, so that's my bead added there. And give that a nice push everything up, make sure it's nice and tight, and then I can just do a couple more of my basket weave just to kind of finish off and make sure that bead is nicely in place like so. And now my wires are right to the edge there, and I've wrapped as far as I can. So now I can just finish off my weaving wire. So I've got a couple of wraps on there, so I know I can snip that off and just make sure that wire is nicely squished in. And I like to kind of smooth it around the wire if I can, make sure it's really nicely finished. So we're going to do something similar like we did around here at the back. So we're going to hold this nice and close to our piece of work and push these both over the back. So pushing them both over, and then we can see where we want to snip them, and we just want to snip with just enough to be able to push that little piece underneath. So not very much, we don't want it too much that it's going to be showing anywhere. So we're just going to snip those quite close, and we can try and put a little bend in them just at the very tip, or we can just go in with our pliers and just bend those around. So just be very gentle on this side, we're just bending kind of this underside in, so just so that we're supporting and nipping those in so they kind of disappear towards the inside there. Okay, so the next part, all we need to do, if you wanted to do this, you could leave this bare and just make a wrapped loop, but what I did was I used some of my weaving wire and created a gizmo coil around here. So it's just a wrapping around and around and around and pushing. So you can kind of do it a few wraps like so and then give it a push. So keeping it nice and smooth, a few wraps, making sure they're not crossing over, and then push together. Don't try and wrap the whole thing like this without pushing it, because you might find that it's not very neat and tidy. But you need probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and then you can wrap this around. And you can actually make them with an actual gizmo coiler as well, and then just slide it on. That works just as well too. So we're going all the way around to the end. I'm running out of wire, but that's about the right length, so I'm happy there. And I can snip my wire off at both ends. There we go, always finishing our wire off with a nice squish. So this is the front of my pendant, so I can tip this forwards a little bit. Now you can use your baling pliers if you want to, or you can use a pen or your fingers. I've not picked up my baling pliers at the moment, so I'm just going to use my fingers to take that around, so I've got that nice bale shape. And then I'm going to bring this to the side and pass. Now I want this to stay quite nice and flat and level, so I'm going to just support it with my pliers while I just wrap it around. So I don't want to squash it too much because I don't want to damage the wire, but I'm just going to wrap this around the top of that bale. So this bale is going to have extra support of this extra little kind of piece of wire, like so. So I'm just holding that in place and adding that little extra bit of wire around there. So you can see these wraps that I've just popped in there while just holding this and just supporting it, and then finding a place where I can just snip off the very end of that wire and make sure that that's pushed in and can't be caught on anything. There we go. So there is my amber pendant, complete, ready to be popped onto a chain or a cord and worn. These look beautiful, absolutely beautiful, patinaed as well, so adding that aging if you are using bare copper. So that's my one with a nice seed bead, and this is my, see, that shape didn't turn out too bad after all. So I'm really pleased with that. So thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did like it, don't forget to pop me a like down below. I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe if you want to see more. I've got lots and lots of wire work and seed beading ideas and joining the two together ideas to come in the future. Take care, stay safe, and I will see you again soon.